Good morning. It is 10:35, running a little bit late this morning. It is Sunday, and that means it is time for Sunday Club, which is usually a weekly Ruby on Rails live stream, but we missed a couple weeks. And by we, I mean me, because I was off living my life. I was doing things. I was doing fun family things and with friends and stuff like that. It's summer. It's hot, it's warm, it's sunny. Got to get out of the house sometimes on a Sunday. But we are back to it for the first time in a few weeks. So there's no follow-up because I haven't looked at any of this stuff in a few weeks. And we are just going to dive right in. My memory of what we were doing before I took a little break was that we had added email-based gems to the app so we could send emails in production, which was exciting. And I have forgotten the name of the email service provider that we picked. Probably had the word mail in it. And we also had looked at a couple of gems for previewing emails in your local development environment. And I always enjoy those because you get like a little fake inbox to take a look at and review all of your emails and things like that. So let's just dive in. Let's just dive straight in. Got no follow-up, got no nothing. Transition over to our code. Let's get rid of this. All right, so what did I write in the YouTube name? Add step-by-step wizard, in brackets, wizard, sign up to our Rails app. All right, we have done a stream on this before, so I'm not going to go into, I'm going to find later on a couple of links because I have streamed on this topic a few times. So I'm not going to talk too much at all about kind of the multiple, many options you have for doing step-by-step wizard type things in Rails. And I'm also going to brush over slightly for now how things like Turbo might affect things like that, because it feels like you could build a pretty cool step-by-step without necessarily having to have multiple pages and things like that. You could take people through a process. Which would be pretty cool, but let's build a fairly basic one to start with. And I'm going to take the same approach to this that I've taken to the previous ones. So if you've seen those, this might not be overly interesting, but let's see what kind of we get to. So let's take a look. So a reminder, which I missed at the intro, is that each week we build a Rails application together, and the application is about event registration and ticketing. And specifically, we're looking at team and group events. So that's what we're looking to do for our application. And we've got a very, very rough UI, very rough, but we have a view component library in the one that GitHub uses, which is called Primer. And we also have a Primer CSS library. So that's where this all this formatting stuff is coming from, but we haven't really implemented a lot of it, and we've just done some fairly basic things. So we do have users, I think, are still in here from before I went away on holiday. Yes, okay, great. And so we have this admin area where you can look at the events that your organization is running, and you can go in and edit those events. Again, very rough user interface for all of this stuff. Just lots of discussion in the stream archive on YouTube about view components, CSS libraries, Tailwind, for example. This uses Stimulus, got a little bug there, and a few things. So we haven't really polished anything, but it's all there. Like you can sort of access it all. There's some stuff on here about the grid, CSS grid. All of that is in the YouTube archive for this channel. So what's the problem that we want to solve today? So for each event that we have here, they are owned by an organization. So this organization is called Sunday Club, and we have this other organization called other-org, and those are all of the organizations. So we want to be able to create new organizations, because at the moment I have to do them in the console every time we want to create one. And we want users to be able to sign up with an organization. You can't get started without one. And we looked at ages ago, again, this is in the YouTube archive of this channel, we looked at how we might model these things out. And we looked at whether organization was the model that we sort of wanted to go through and how that might work. So we kind of settled on that of having organization and that sort of representing that all events would need an organization, and potentially there could be a world where, as you can see, a user can be the administrator of multiple organizations, but they are kind of separate entities and you have to sort of go between the two. And there would be no, at the moment, world where there's kind of like crossed resources between the organizations. The organization is the highest sort of domain object from which lots of event things kind of cascade. So, but you can't create them as a user. You can't sign up. You can sign up for an account. So here, if we go to localhost, we left all of the default devise stuff in place. But if you sign up, you can't do anything because you're not an administrator. You can already register for events without needing to sign up. So there's no, at the moment in this kind of nascent bare bones application, there's no reason to sign up. There's nothing you can do. The only reason to sign up and create an account would be to administrate an organization, but you can't create an organization. So it's a bit of a catch-22 at the moment. So the step-by-step wizard that I think we want to create is the idea of allowing someone to say, hey, I actually have an event I want to run. So I'm going to run a family fun run for my work or something like that. And I want to run it through this software, but I need to tell you about it. I need to create my event. And we can't let them, well, maybe we can. That's the conversation we can get to is, right, you have an event, you want to create it, you've got nothing, you turn up at some page, great. What does it look like to create the organization and potentially create the event? So let's sort of start there. Could start in Sketch and sort of design how we want this to look. That would probably be a good idea, or some sort of wireframing software, but I'm not really in the mood for that. I want to write some Rails. So let's just sort of wing it for now. And if we screw it up, we can just sort of come back to it later. So let's see what we have got in our application so far. Where are we? So we've got this admin area. We've got an events controller that you can only use for shows. That's where people can sort of publicly view events. Orders is the idea of like registering for an event. And that is, yeah, currently at like a root level, I think it's like /orders/new. Static controller just does the homepage. And we have some stuff for the user to manage their account. Okay, that's all good. So we want, let's sort of sketch some stuff out. So we want to probably have a page where, so let's have like user arrives at a landing page, something like that. And this, or this could be like, this could just be the home page. So they arrive there. User wants to create a new event. And as usual, I say this every stream, but just like we're skipping all diligence here. Like if this is a project that you're doing that you want to take more seriously, or that you're doing it for your day job or something like that, you would do some planning. Like usual caveat that this is not how anyone goes about this. This is just because we've got a couple of hours to play with and we just want to get something up and running. And I don't really I'm not in the mood to do Sketch and, you know, thinking too much through. Let's just crack into some nonsense. So user wants to create an event. So they want to create a new event, but in order to do that, we need them, because of our domain modeling, to also tell us what organization it's for. We have decided not to model it so that a user can arbitrarily create an event associated with their account. They have to sort of tell us that it's for an organization. And again, that's a domain, like that's an app decision. That's something that you didn't have to do. We could have done it however we liked. But we do still have options. So we could create a dummy organization, which I think we have done in the previous application we built on this stream. I think we did do that. That application was for creating websites for YouTube channels and Twitch streams. And I think what we did was say, when you created, you told us what the channel was, and we just behind the scenes created, I can't remember if it was called an organization, but we created something behind the scenes and just gave it a default name. But I think here we might want to be more explicit about yeah, about asking you about the organization you're creating first. And there are potentially a few reasons that I think that might be a good idea, in that we might want to have them pick some sort of account type. So like maybe if there are like different levels, like maybe there's maybe they want to pay for like a fancy organization type, this would be the point at which you could insert that process. So hey, tell us about your organization. You could say, okay, great, well, you do you want these benefits? Great, here's another step, you have to give us money. Usually you might not do that up front. Depends on what you're experimenting with, but you might normally let them kind of have a freemium model potentially, where they could create things, and then later on you're like, oh great, you can have them free for a while, or there's thresholds or something like that. But also you might place a bottleneck up here, so asking them up front for this information could be a good seam to do that. The other option we could do is let them give us all their event information, and then because they've already invested at that point, and start entering, say, oh hey, what's the organization for? And so you could have a world. So I think we did actually if we go and look at our model for our events, I think we did validate that it has an organization. Yeah, validate its organization ID. So we could potentially remove that validation and allow people to create an event with no organization as like a skeleton or a dummy, or even place that in a separate database table, for example, and be like, oh great, well, you've told us you want to run your fun run on Thursday. In order to complete signing up, you now have to give us X and Y, and throw people in that order. And the only thing I can think that would be a good thing is that people, once they've started a process, are like, okay, fine, I'm in this now. I've given you like the name of the fun run and the date of it and the location of it. Now you're going to ask for the organization name. I'll just give you anything to get past that. And now you need a username and password. Okay, fine. Rather than like, at what point are you placing that friction? So in our new events page, we only have an admin one at the moment, which is here. So these are the field very not formatted. I think that is even optional as well, the sort of description part. Yeah, I think we actually only need these 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, we don't need time zone. We could sort of default perhaps. So you could say, just give us these 3 things. Create a skeleton version of that. Then ask for the organization information. Then ask for their user information. That could be the wizard going through. Or we could... I'm just thinking of when we looked in the sort of like the competitor research, or kind of a couple of streams where we looked around at other applications that did this. We looked at, I think it was active.com. And because of just the sheer number of things they needed to know, God, I don't know what just happened. There's a lot going on here. So event organizers, learn more, sign up. I mean, they don't have the most fun type of sign up. I actually have an account, but yeah, I guess they're sort of big enough to not worry about this too much. Yeah, let's sort of start with the organization details and sort of bump the event stuff, because we could always come back and tag that in at the end. So let's sort of start sketching some stuff out and see here. Let's do something like so you're an organizer, which I think is the sort of phrase. So organizers, something like that could be the path, or welcome, or something like that. And then you could have like either numbers, depending on how you do the resources, or you could do like yeah, let's start there. So here, this first step would be organization field, organization name. You could then have like something like, I'm just making these up. Then here you could be like, yeah, so okay, so you could sort of go through. I'm actually adding more friction to this process. So each of these paths, but like, here's what I'm trying to get to. Each of these paths represents like a step in the wizard. So this would then be where we ask them for email address and password. That one could be awkward if you want to do social sign-in, because you sort of to wander off to other services at that point, but you could always move that to the last one. And then you could go straight into your first event, or not. You could drop them straight out. So let's start there. So we want, how are we going to do this? Let's have a namespace, and we're going to call it organization. Creation? Organization. Yeah, creation, onboarding, getting started. I think if you follow this pattern consistently, you would want like these all to have the same suffix. Let's just go with that for now. And then in here, let's put yeah, it wouldn't be the getting started controller, but it could be like I mean, it could be the organization controller. So like the resource here is gonna be the organization, and you could just have the first step actually as organizations new. The downside to that is that if you then want another one of those, are you starting the step-by-step wizard journey in the organization's controller and then stepping out into another namespace, or do you just do everything inside a namespace? And I know I'm not sort of describing it very well because we haven't drawn out any planning or something, but let's let's say this is called yeah, let's say this is called, because I don't think organizations controller is useful in here, because that's always going to be the resource. So let's put something like, what's the first thing we're going to ask? Is it just the name that we're going to ask for? Just going to look at my other window just off screen. Just going to look at how we did this last time, because we've got another repo. Sorry, I'm just on the other screen, so if you see me looking down, try and pull this forward a bit. Yeah, I think I'd be pretty torn as to use this as, do this within the organizations controller, because then at least, what was that other repo called? Should we just call it? Bear with me a second. Okay, I'm going to follow the naming I've used in the other one, which is just on screen, which is setup, and then do the actual creation in the kind of root controller. Okay, let's do that. Okay, I can kind of see my thinking there. So it's the idea where you actually do the creation of the resource in its own controller, and then do the setup of it, which is like, hey, get this thing underway in a separate namespace. Okay, so let's have an organizations controller. And we could have scaffolded all this stuff. I always keep meaning to sort of build my own scaffold. I do see people doing that, and it seems to save them a bit of time, or have some sort of like handy thing to get them going. But I just keep forgetting it's not that much typing. Like everything, like some of the engineers seem to just fly through things, and they're like, oh yeah, I spent half my life configuring things so that I never need to type the same thing twice, and I am not that organized. I do enjoy working with engineers like that, because you do spend a lot less time on like, oh no, it's not show, is it? It would be new. And so let's also have a spec for that. Now we're using request spec for these, so we can have this, and presumably we have a new for some of these. Oh, loads of stuff. Well, let's just take this, and we'll come back to that. And we're actually going to have, so here what I've put is the learner, the user facing resource, that kind of the URL they can see is organizers, because they are the thing they care about, right? Like under the hood, we're creating an organization, and their user account is actually only at the end of it, but they are the organizer of the event, and they care about, I mean, most people won't see the path themselves, but as far as they're concerned, this is a process for them, not about the underlying resource. Which I kind of think about sometimes, is like a lot of apps, you sort of see the paths are really I wonder how many users sort of see them and be like, oh, what does that mean? That doesn't tie to what I'm actually doing. So I don't know if some people are more militant about kind of keeping the resource name tied to the path, but I always just think make it make sense to the people who are, especially like if they're going to be emailing it to people and copying and pasting it, they're like, oh yeah, organizers, I'm an organizer, I'm getting started here. Okay, cool. I don't know. Choose your own adventure. So let's add roots for it. So we've got organization slug and that's all admin stuff. Let's go in here. Oh, path. Oh, actually, because I've done resources, but I actually want to map show specifically. So I think I can actually just do. Should I just do these manually? I think you can do it so that you still use resources, but I don't think that's particularly helpful. God, I'm doing this from memory, so this could all be way off. Organizations new. Checking my spelling. I think that'll get us there. Let's take a look at. Oh, it's a default setting. We can. I didn't even know I was an early access participant of that, but I'm glad to hear I've helped Firefox do something. Right, so organizations, new, organizers, getting started path. Okay. We can do, in case we want to go back on that, we could, like, could we do as... What's the syntax for new? New order path. Yeah, so if we do as that then maps, the only thing we're then changing is the user facing path. So new organization path remains tied to organizations new, because then if we extract this path out later, the new right, okay, yeah. Well, then we could at least decide. Yeah, okay, this can stay new organization path. So let's do a test for this, and there was some up here, wasn't there? So this, we said recently we actually could use paths for this. So this could be new organization path, I think. So I think for a while I thought we couldn't. But we don't need any params, do we? I don't think we do. I think we can just do that. And we don't need anything at all, so we should just get this. Like we're just doing a test to say, hey, does this exist? So does this exist? It's been a while since I've done these request specs on the stream. Do I have to do like a... Oh, I had to do get, sorry. Okay, so... Organizations control the new is missing a template. Great. So tests doing their job, telling us that this doesn't fly, this doesn't work. And let's just pop in some content just to get this skeleton up and running. Let's see what happens. Great, so we have a passing test. Okay, so let's commit all of that stuff. Just a basic skeleton of some stuff that will let us do something. Okay. Add skeleton. So I've had to put initial. Add initial organizations. Follow with new action. There's not a lot to say there. It's all skeleton stuff, so we don't need to give too much context. There's not a lot that anyone looking at that would struggle to understand. So, we should be able to go there in under environment. I think we might need to restart the server, and then we can go. We sign out. Did we ever build the ability to sign out? No, I think we just have to kill all of the cookies. New organization. Great. Okay. So that works. When we get there, on our new orders, did we add in? No, we didn't. I thought we'd added somewhere this idea of a centralized column view component that we could use. I genuinely thought we'd added that in somewhere. Let's go look at our components layout, single column layout. Okay, that sounds like what we're looking for. Does it specify its width? 550. Okay, that might be what we're looking for. So we can say in our view here, I'm trying to remember this. So somewhere there, this thing exists. Oh, it was in orders new. Okay. So we can do this, and in orders new, organizations new, we can plonk this in, and that should just like give us formatting as if by magic. Great, gives us a red border and moves everything to the middle. Okay, so we want this one passes an event summary component. We don't have an event yet, so I can just make some stuff up. Although, didn't we add, so you have to do this? I can't remember what we ended up doing. No, I mean, that seems styled, so... we could put something like, tell us about, no, not tell us about, right, we sort of want to set the user up on a journey here. So the thing that they want to do is create their event. God, I'm actually going to go back and watch that stream about all of the other apps that we looked at, like Eventbrite and stuff. And it was interesting because Eventbrite was like so generic that you actually, it could be for anything, whereas we sort of wanted to say, So sign up. Sell tickets online. I sort of want to tell them I'm an event. Sell tickets now. Right, they all just sort of make you sign up for this. Let's can't wait. I have no idea how we styled any of these things. God, if you're not working on this stuff for a few weeks, my brain just lets it go. Tell us about yeah, we can come back and format some of this stuff later, but that'll do for now. And then we want to have a form. We had a form in here, simple form 4. And that will be organization, which we don't have yet. So let's go and solve that problem as well. Maybe we should write out a system test. But we should probably, like I said at the start, we're skipping over all of our diligence, so we haven't done a design, we haven't done a plan or anything. But the other thing that we would do, I was like, why am I bumping into this? Is because we haven't then written out a system test that we would like ideally make pass based on what we thought the user was about to do, because we're just making this up as we go along. So yet another consistent acknowledgement that we are skipping all diligence. So we don't actually know what the user is about to fill in, therefore we can't write a test for it. And I don't really want to think it through that way because I'm not in the mood to be diligent. That's not what this live stream is for. It's for doing Rails stuff. So we want to go into our controller and just set that instance variable so it's available. And I don't think we even need to prime the pump with anything, because this is a full, and by prime the pump I mean like there's no default attributes or anything we need to pass or set. We don't have a user at this point, we don't have anything. You are just literally a blank experience. So we're just going to start this organization off. And so what does an organization need? That's probably the only things we really care about. So we validate name and slug is generated for us automatically. So let's say name. So we are going to have input, I think it is, as name, and then we're going to put as string. And someone pointed out on previous ones that you don't have to put in as string, but because we are using text fields for a lot of these things, I assume that's text as well. It will give us a text area because maybe we didn't do that. Maybe organizations actually. No, it is t.text. I think we would get a text area. So I just want to specify that we want a text box. And we can do label. Organization name, and then does simple form have like there's usually like a prompt or a hint, but I can't remember if that's a custom thing that I've used in apps that happen to have that thing that you could pass it. So you can pass to input where like you can customize the output, the rendering. I think we've actually done a little bit of that already. I can't remember if we did or not. But you can sit in here. Sorry, I was just looking. Maybe it's in like initialize. You can do really cool stuff with simple form, and you can have like hint, I think is one. Just go take a look. Simple form Rails hint or prompt. I can't remember. It's one of those two. Label, hints, prompts, and placeholders. Okay, so it looks like they have both. Do they have both out the box? Let's look up hint. You can also add a hint. So hint equals no special characters. Okay, so hint is the one I'm looking for. So we can put, let's wrap it because we haven't got a lot of room on here. And we'll say hint. We can always change that later. Okay, let's see if that renders anything out. It does not. Oh, okay. We don't have a create action. That's fine. We can go create one. Let's do that next. So let's go. And we're going to do post. This one we can actually do. I mean, what does the, I can't remember, hang on, I'm just, can't articulate it. So when you have resources, what's the default path for create? Orders path. So this could just be, we could just have it post to the same URL. Does that matter? I don't think so. Maybe I'm really going to get stung for that. I'm not sure. To do that. So simple form for organization. I think here you can just do URL. Yeah, I think that will just post to the URL you're on. Yeah, I think that might be a bad idea, but I can't put my finger on why. Okay, there we go. So this will just post to this path, and here we're saying this path does accept post. Why does it keep doing that? Not sure what's going on there. Something's happening with my mouse. So let's jump back to our controller. I'll do this just for visibility. Then we need the test for that as well. Got a spec. Stations controller. So in here, we can have create action. I have to go through and update all these tests because I'm not sure. There was something happened that made me think you couldn't use post helpers, or I had to do some work. Hello in the chat, guest on. Hello, followed you a long time. It's hard to find streamers that use Rails. Oh, well, I appreciate the follow. There are a couple of Rails streamers somewhere. I've been following one recently. Mix and something. Hang on a second. I will find you another path. You probably already have it if you're looking for Rails streamers. But I'm always interested in people streaming it. So let me do that in the background. Try and find the name of the channel. I was looking at. Oh, so recently I was looking at the Evil Martians channel. Hang on, I'm going to pump some of these links into the chat maybe. I was looking at this one recently. How do I put stuff in the chat? I should know how to do that. I'll put it in the YouTube video description. I have no idea what I'm doing. In the YouTube video description, the Evil Martians one, other Rails streams, because I think it's different finding Rails streams versus tutorial content, like just watching. That is Evil Martians do some stream stuff. And the other one I found, I haven't watched a lot of all of these. I've just been kind of looking for it recently. I think it's on my other channel. Like, I think I followed it from my personal channel. I can't remember the name of it. Oh, Mix and Go, that's it. Has been doing some streams lately. Where do I find live stuff? Maybe that's just on Twitch, I'm not sure. Anyway, I'll put that in the YouTube video description as well. So I know some people watch this on Twitch, but I don't know how to put stuff on Twitch, so like persistently it all sort of disappears. Mix and go. Mix and go. There's more stuff for Rails out there. But if you find people that are good and interesting, let me know. I'm always I often have Twitch in the background. All right, cool. So organization name. Okay, great. So we want to kind of finish our test create. So you can post to organizations path. This should be the create action, and we expect it to have created. I've done this for ages. Where's create? Oh, we didn't even check the status on this one. We just checked that it actually created, that it did things. Okay. What about events? Did we do create there? Just check validation. And then we did create on a bunch of these ones. These are viewers and admin mostly, aren't they? I have to get into testing next week for my training program, so good timing. Oh, is there anything specific that you're looking at doing with testing? Yeah, good luck, because I haven't done request specs for a few weeks, and apparently my brain has forgotten everything that it needed to know about them. And even HTTP responses by the sounds of it. HTTP Rails created. It's just created, right? Yeah. Okay. Cool. It's phenomenal how your brain is like, yeah, I'm just gonna leave everything you've ever known behind. So we can just, for now, did I close the actual controller file? Yes. So we can just do like that just to make the test pass. So let's see if our tests do pass. I do work with Rails, yes. I do work with Rails, but not this application. So I only do this one an hour or two every week. I forget all the stuff in it. Undefined variable like organizations path. Did I not save this? Let's give that a try. Cool. Okay, so we have at least a passing test there. But we just put in head created. Just it doesn't do anything. It just says that it should return that. So the next test we want to get passing is it should create. And it should return a created response. And it should create an organization. We want it to actually do the thing we think it's gonna do. And so we can lift, have a fairly basic one here. We can just expect it to create it. And we probably want to put in a set of params, because the create action is going to need that, and then we can create the params here. Oops, already did it for me. And we can just have an empty hash for now because we don't know what it's going to do. Well, we know that it only needs a name. So this could just be like test org name. And that's all it needs. So that actually should work. These are valid params. Yeah, actually, so we should just get a fail because it doesn't increment that number by 1, or I just increment that number. Yep, so we expected it to change it by 1, but it was 0. But I think the test is valid. Let's see. So here we can say create a new organization with the parameters we've been given. We need an organization, and we want name, which I think is all we need. So that should be able to pass name to that, and we can say if we can just do that again, else we can render out you, and our path won't have changed for our user because we've used the same path. The issue I think with using the same path was whether it already had params at the end, but I don't think that matters because it would still use the one from the form. So does that pass the tests? It does not. It fails all the tests. Oh, because the params in the tests are wrong because they never specify that they are for an organization. Actually, let's do it. No, they're always gonna be for the organization. So can we do that, or is that bad formatting? Yes, that's bad formatting. Wait, what's... Right, that might be it. Great. Okay, so this now works. Cool. Okay, so does it work on the front end? We can go there. So refresh this. Oh, I haven't got a submit button. There's no way to actually do the submission. We want to do that in our view. And in here, chuck in missing an equals there, so no button showed up. Oh, and we can have our fancy button things, right? Like, how did we do that on our other form? Class button primary. So this isn't Bootstrap, this is Primer. Oops. Didn't copy that properly. Oh, something weird's going on with my copying and pasting that. So this gets us some sort of button that is fancy. It's green, nice. I thought we'd done it to our brand color at some point, but I've obviously forgotten which one that is. So if I do this, it can't be blank. No formatting on anything, but fine. Let's not worry about that. And otherwise we can go do like test org1. So we don't get anything back because we just told it to return a head, but we should have... Oh God. Guess the only way to test that is in the console. And organization.last is test org1. Okay, so we get our organization. Great. So we are now in a place where we have our resource. So we've stayed inside organizations for the creation of the resource. But what we then want to do is we created like a minimally viable resource. Like we've only populated the field, literally one field that is required. In fact, two, because it generated a slug. But at some point, what we would want to do is indicate that this organization, this resource, actually isn't fit for purpose. It's sort of in a state where it needs to have its setup completed. And this is not a Rails thing. This is like our application. Like we're saying, hey, we actually want to send the user off to now go and populate a bunch of fields about this. Like we could theoretically ask for the user information either on the step before or on the same step. So instead of just organization name, if I go back a step, this could be organization name and your email address and password, or, you know, social sign in, whatever it is. Or we could have done that in the step before, and then we could associate your user with the organization and just send you straight into the admin area, for which we already have organizations stuff set up. But what I want to do is build this journey so that we collect all this information and then ask you for the user information. So this is a decision that we're making on the application side. There's nothing Railsy about this. You can do it however you want, but it changes the journey, the sign-up experience for your users. So at this point, so let's add a link to, let's link here. So organization path from our homepage, which is static homepage. So we have like get started, and instead of get started, we're going to make this a link to, and that's going to be a copy. Some things here. Again, this is not Tailwind, even though it looks like it. It's actually Primer. I think it's just class for link to, but I can't remember. And our path is going to be new organization path, because we've wired our custom thing to it. So I think this should generate the same markup. So let's go back to our home page just with the path. Great. So this gets started now goes to here. And you have no user at this point. So what we could do is do what Eventbrite and Active were doing, which is like, oh, hey, you want to create your event, you want to have people sign up for things, tell us your email address. Well, we're not doing that. We're gonna flip it and say, right, tell us about who you are, and we can ask a bunch of stuff, and then at the end we're gonna ask for who they are. And as I said, this is an application choice, and the risk that you have here by asking for stuff without them signing up is that you lose them and you never actually get their email address or anything like that. What you gain is that they are in and performing the action that they want to accomplish before you put the friction of having to get personal information or them remembering their email address. So it's a real like user experience decision rather than anything else. So do you place that brick wall of like, oh, you know, which account am I going to use, blah, blah, blah. What you could do is, because one of the reasons for this one is by just accepting the organization name, you can sort of find out who's interested before they've actually signed up. So if they put in here like Acme, Acme tires, I don't know, whatever they do, and then you ask for their address, you might get all of that information, and then you might not get an email address at the end, they might drop out, but that could be potential sales information. I don't really know. I guess GDPR wise, that's even fine. You could probably reach out to them for sales information because they haven't told you anything about themselves. That's not personally identifiable at that point. They've just given you, it's like a lead form basically. Whereas if you take their email address up front, like you would know who that person was and have to be responsible there. Anyway, this is all fun design stuff for your individual application. That sounds like a good idea so that people don't get discouraged before creating anything. Yeah. So yeah, I like it. It's a definite trade-off. And we will come back to that in a second. What are you going to use for login and register? This is using Devise. So there is a stream in the YouTube archive, I think, where we look at different gems for registering and also roles. And I just ended up using Devise and Pundit because I've used them before and they are really straightforward. So yeah, nothing too far out of the box. One of the things just to touch on, so when I mentioned the trade-offs there, we are persisting this data server side. What I have seen done, and especially in a world where you're using something, maybe like you're just using a front-end application or you're doing something else, is you allow them to build out a couple of steps client-side, so you don't even bother to persist it. You basically either build a giant form or you just persist it in like local storage or do something else where you do persist that information, but you don't store it on your server side. And so that's another version of that trade-off. So if they come back to the application later, maybe you leave these forms filled in. So it's like if in local storage they have entered this organization before, you can have them kind of restart if they didn't get to the end. So there are like varying degrees of trade-off you can do about whether you kind of care about this. Because let's say here I leave this path, so this would be like something organizers getting started. I give you my details, or maybe I even type them in and don't submit them or something like that. I leave, I go away, and I come back. So I have a new tab where I come back. This is gone. And so maybe on step 2, it's also gone. You could persist this locally for the user, client side. And that would be cool. You could do that even in Rails. It doesn't need to be just with the front end application. You could just have a little stimulus controller that did... you could decide whether to store it client side on button press, or you could genuinely like store stuff for them based on blur or on key up, maybe like every time they submit a key, you just store it locally and you match the field names to the fields. And then when they come back, and you would need to have, I think you would probably want to have some sort of, yeah, like some sort of key you could invalidate in case you change the fields here and they no longer mapped. So let's say you had like 4 fields and you wanted to store the values the user had entered. You could store them all locally, but let's say you want to change 2 of the fields. You probably don't want them to come back and find 2 fields populated and 2 not. So you could store the stuff locally with like some sort of identifier, and then when you change the form, you could just you could change it. The identifier for the data in localhost could be like a hash of the form field names or something like that. Something that would definitely break if you change the form. I don't know, something like that. Anyway, this works. So next step, we have our resource. We have an empty organization, and we've only asked the user for one piece of information, but we want to send them somewhere, and we want to send them to the next step. So we want to send them to organization setup, and let's do everywhere else we've used organization. I feel like some places you're going to end up doing org, but I tend to sort of err on the side of if you're going to use a full word somewhere, use it everywhere. Maybe that's doesn't make any sense, but because this is going to get real long real fast. Oh, we should commit some stuff. probably overdue for that. So let's take a look at what we got. We have a new route for our action. We have a new test that tests that. We have a form that appears. That is related to our previous one. No, actually, because we only added the form here, so that can go in. Okay, so yeah, so all that can go in here. That's new. That's separate. Okay, so this can all go in. So we can add create action. How does it? Add create action to organizations controller. Anything special in here? No. I'm not going to commit this because we sort of want to start doing a system test. Now that we've got some step-by-steps, let's not commit this until we have a test that is saying, can you get... well, we can come back to where do we want the system test to start and finish? Like, what's the actual end-to-end? Does the homepage count? Potentially, because that might be your primary call to action. So maybe you actually want to test that always links to the right place and works. But let's do our next controller so that we have somewhere to send them. So... we can say we want to do a test for this as well, I guess. This is called organization. Yes, that is singular. Did I just lose that by scrolling? Oh, God damn it. Organization setup, and in here we have organization details. Is that what? Yeah. Great. And so this can then take a bunch of stuff for this. And sort of had this conversation last time we did this pattern, which is that like we're not treating the organization. There isn't one resource that we're then moving through and having different actions on it. We're just going to treat each step of the wizard as its own resource. So these details are like the resource. So we can say, well, we can just mark them, put them all as, we can put them all as new because they're all new. You could say that you're all doing all edit because the underlying resource is the organization, but I found it doesn't matter, especially if you're overriding the paths anyway. Let's see what happens. It might suck. We can take all of that actually, just to make our lives easier. So this is organization setup controller. Oh no, it's not. It's organization setup, organization details controller. So this is getting really long. That doesn't really bother me too much. I know some people really hate stuff like that, but if you're going to have a word like organization, everything's going to get really long. So this is going to have a new path that we'll have to work out. And it will also actually need an organization this time. So now we have a requirement. Can we? I don't think we actually need a real persisted one because I'd need to do the retrieve. So organization. And so we probably then need some params. And we need organization ID is going to be a good one to use. It'll be the slug, won't it? We could just call it organization, but I think slug is fine. And that can be organization dot slug. So this would need that. And that, I don't think we need their require because we need that. Let's go to our root and work out what I'm trying to do here because I think I'm just talking nonsense. So in here, I'm making this up. I have no idea if this is what will actually get us what we need. But I just want to find something to get us started. Let's do only new for now. And the path is going to be... Was it organization details? I had like a little scratch file somewhere that we were working from. A few more details, okay. It's totally arbitrary. I don't think it... That's actually might be worse than organization details, but let's figure that out. Right, does any of this work? Is this good? Does this get us anywhere near what we want? Let's take a look. So right, what do we get? So we got new let's make this a bit bigger. So we get new organization path, gets us to organizers getting started, and that gets us to organizations new. So we're still in the organizations controller here. Great. Same path, but a post action organizations path. So this is the same as if we had used resources with a custom path. We just happen to have specified them separately. That's fine. That's all still within the organizations controller. This next one is the one we care about. So here we have the path as organization dash setup. That's not what we want. And we have organization details new. So this is wrong because we need that to be namespaced. And this is wrong as well. So this isn't correct. So we need to look up how to use Rails roots scope. And I think we can use, yeah, I think we can use scope or namespace. I think they do stuff. This is the simplest option. When you use namespace, it will prefix the URL path of the specified resources and try and locate the controller or module named in the same. Scope is a bit more complex, but the advantage gives you more options to fine tune. Or maybe namespace will get us what we want. Oh, the scope supports 3 options: module, path, and as. So I think module might get us everything for module, path, and as. Path allows us to prefix that will appear in the URL. But I've given it path and it hasn't used that, so it should use organizers. But it hasn't done. But it has used path here. What happens if I use namespace and then refresh this? Let's see if I can just come in. Oops. Ah, right, that has actually done what we want. Okay, that's lengthy. We could potentially just shorten it for the helper. So could we do that? Right, because right, maybe we do want scope. Module admin path 3. So does path not work without module? Let's go back to try scope and try. There's this. Path is that. See what that gets us. That gives us what we want here and here. Because I'm sort of just chopping that. That might be a really bad idea of chopping the module name out of the helper, but whatever. But we don't get the path. That's weird. Path allows us to set the prefix that will appear in the... should it be like that? No, look, that's working right there. Oh, wait, hang on. Maybe I just don't need that. Maybe I need that with namespace. Right, okay, cool. So right, so the issue there is that namespace accepts its module name, I guess, as the first argument, and scope doesn't. Scope just says, right, this is the module. I'm guessing I don't need that, actually. Oh, what happened there? Did I just kill the server or something? Whoa. I don't know what happened there. Really broke that. That's fun. Organizes a few more details / new. Yeah, so here... no, where am I? So here... I don't think we need the new, so we could just do get for all of these, like get organization, so get few more details to, because we're not really buying ourselves much with the resource anyway. So does that get us what we want? That feels ropey with that not being there. Few more details path. Because we could just do here, I'm assuming we could add this to this, and we actually do add this in. Does that get us the longer helper at the start? Yeah, maybe we do want that because now we don't have... We don't have new, but each of these is custom named. Because this could presumably also be as new. I don't know if any of this is good or bad. I think a lot of people would fucking hate this. It's like, this should all be way more resource based. And you're going, like, why are you bringing a lot of concepts in that aren't tied to just the pure resource? But I don't know, the actual practical user journey and like the user experience stuff, I think is going to change a lot over the early life cycle. So just having the ability to have like, oh, well, let's fully change how the organization setup happens. Like whether it's we bring the user in, the event in, the organization in, like, and tie all of that under one namespace and not care about the resources that are actually being worked on. The resource, this doesn't make, I don't think this works, but like the thing that you care about is the onboarding experience of the user, not the actual models and resources that are being created under the hood. Think about it from a marketing and user experience point of view first, rather than a domain modeling one, and I don't think that sounds like something that people would want. A lot of people would want. So now we have this prefix for, like, this is a super long thing, but you have like the prefix for the namespace, then the specific section that you're in, that has a totally custom path and a totally custom controller that only represents stuff. Like, and we happen to only be dealing with the organization in there at the moment, but this could easily become like a form object or something else. And all we're doing is sort of mapping our controllers to our user journey. That could be a complete mess, but it is what it is for now. So we have an organization's details controller spec. So this then, no, that's no longer the path. So this is now going to be this path. And this is going to need to take an organization. It takes an organization slug. Oh, fuck. I'll tell you what we do need. Ah, yeah. That's a good point. We've stuck with organizers as a path here. But we could switch them into their organization slug, because that's what our admin area is namespaced under. So up here we've got path organization slug, and that's where they go to. That's where we do all organization things. So we could put everything inside here, or we could leave them inside organizers, pass the slug through as a param, which could be interesting. We could... Because again, you could even... Sorry, I'm just thinking that through. Like what? Like, and again, I'm thinking of it through as like the experience you want to create. And I know that no one really looks at the paths, and most browsers don't even show them anymore, so maybe it's irrelevant. But like, one of the things I noticed, and this is totally anecdotal, so I'd use a data point of 1, so you can't really extract anything from it, is like the copying and pasting of URLs. So when people send links to each other, like, hey, I'm setting this thing up, that tends to be where it looks weird, where they're like, oh, you know, this has got the name of our organization in it, or something like that. And I guess it depends on what we're actually about to say in this next step. So let's jump ahead. Maybe this will help inform us. So let's jump ahead to do organization setup. And in here we have a folder called organization details. And in here we have new. So we're going to do the same thing we did before. Grab all of this stuff out. And here, this can all stay. That can go. So here you could have like just sort of thinking of some copy for around this. So tell us a little more about organization name. I don't really have any specific. One of the downsides of not doing any planning and just cracking into this is not really knowing what I'm about to ask for. Yeah, like when I've done this in the past, so I've built a sort of flow like this for a similar app. We wanted to sort of learn what people were attempting to do next in order to try and help their onboarding journey. So if it was like, so for the type of organization, we would do things like ask if they were a charity, ask if they were a business, ask what country they were in, because like that we couldn't work with certain places and things like that, and just sort of like get rid of any early friction. But we don't have a lot of those constraints, so might just, yeah, let's just sort of leave this as an optional. So let's put in some promo blurb here about fields we need for the organization. But we would need to get organization name. So within the controller, let's actually flesh this out a little bit. This would be what we needed. And this would be... Again, people probably miffed off how long that would become, but you can kind of figure this out as you go. So in here, we would need to do... There's probably like a consistent version of this where we're like set organization. Oops. And I think we have... something like this. I'm just kind of winging some of this. I'm not really thinking about it too much. I'm just sort of going with it. See what we end up with. I think we have friendly ID gem in, which I think will let us pass in either the slug or the ID, and both will work for .find. I think this modifies find to accept two different values. So theoretically then from here, we could, this will break the test for this, but we could redirect to, because this is checking for a created action when it's about to be redirect. But that's fine, that's what we want. And so we need to know the path where we're going. We're going to go here, and we can just set the, holy shit, that's long. And we can set organization slug as organization.slug. So let's see if that works. Params organization slug. So what do we actually get as params? Oh, it didn't come through? Oh, wait, have I done it the wrong way around? Is that actually like that? Go back. Great. Okay, cool. So here, so what we've done there is organization name. We're saving and storing the organization as a resource here. And all we're doing is just grabbing the slug value and just passing it through as a param. So that's just a quick fudge on deciding whether or not to put that slug in the path and commit us to that, which I think is actually probably fine now that I think about it, to go from organizers getting started to, you've told us about your organization. Let's immediately switch to that being the root path, and everything you then do for that setup process is in that organization. Because if you needed to add another organization, because we allow you to be a member of multiple, because if you remember we had that drop down at the start, which has already been built, so a user can have multiple organization memberships. We could actually, that's I'm actually talking myself into putting this. So let's say we had an organization like Acme widgets. This would become Acme widgets / a few more details or whatever. I've talked myself into it so much. Let's actually go and build it out that way, so we can redo our roots then. So we can come in here, lift out of here, and go within. Do we want to put everything here inside here, or would we just keep it down? Would we keep it where it was? I think we probably only want one place where we're like, hey, we're inside organization slug. Is that right? Then in here we have namespace, and we could do the same thing here. So namespace can have path. So within here, yeah, because there's no module here. Then this goes. So this should now be / Acme widgets / a few more details, but you're inside these controllers. Does that happen? Let's go check our roots. So you have organizers getting started, organization. So that all stays the same. And then in here, we then have organization slug / no, we want to have like a path in here as well. Like, what was it here? Getting started. This could actually be the same thing. Oh, so / Acme widgets getting started, a few more details. Yeah, so the getting started is persistent. And this then says organization setup, new organization details path. Is that still the same? Organization setup, new organization details path. Yeah, so that hasn't changed. So we've moved where it is in the roots, but we the actual, because this scope doesn't specify a module, there's nothing to change. All it's saying is that there's a path at the prefix. So this is now required, but we've already passed this in here. So I think this test might still just pass, because we were already passing it through. Oh, is that the same organization details controller spec? No, that's wrong. That should now fail. Yes, because we're now doing a redirect, not a created. But let's do, oops. Copy relative path. Oh, I am on a different laptop. Okay, so we've messed up get. Organization slug. Oh, it has to be in, okay, so it's not a param, it's actually, like this, and then the params can be empty, like that. Yes, okay, cool. That's incredibly long. But that's okay. That is what it is. Just gonna make this a little easier to read with this big font size. I'm not sure that's that easier to read, but at least you can fit it all on the screen. Okay, great. So for this organization details, there is a new action and you can view it. Right, so this is when we can start to play then. So now we're inside. Let's go back to all the way to our homepage. Great. We're here, we get started. We do Acme widgets, get started. Go over to here. So Acme widgets got a random thing because that's already a little random hash on our slug because Acme widgets has already been taken. That's all handled by the friendly ID gem. We can control what that is and looks like. Getting started, / a few more details. So we've got getting details. We can now start to do things where we could make some of these steps optional. We want to define what order they go in. And make it easy for us to link between them and things like that. We've already got our resource, so we're only editing it. But at this point, we have no user. And as we spoke about at the start, we could enforce adding a user up front. We could add a user where we want. Let's put that step in. What is it? User details. Let's put users controller, I guess. Yeah, like I said, I'm not sure any of this is actually a good idea. Or that I would keep much of it, but oh, this is the spec. Okay, fine. Sorry, I lost where I was there. But again, like I said at the start, normally you would have done your planning and your diligence and stuff up front. So you would have had these conversations about what was a good idea and how you wanted to structure it and what it looked like and all of those fun things. So you wouldn't be just randomly winging it like this. So in here, we need all that stuff. Actually, all of that is usable, I think. This would then be new users path. We don't even need, if there are no params, we just don't need that. Not sure we need it on the other one either. So this should fail. Because there's no controller or view or anything, so let's go, or root. So let's go through, let's start with our roots. Okay, I think that's sort of right. Again, I'm just sort of making some of this stuff up. I'm not sure. Like the organization details, that's weird, but then does linguistically make a bit more sense than user detail. As new users, this is all namespace to the organization setup. So presumably in here. This. That can all stay the same. This can get extracted out. We can make a base one eventually if we end up following any of this through. and we can have a few. Let's figure this one through. So what's this got in it? Tell us a bit more about you. Remote blurb. And this is a simple form for the user. And again, we can leave the URL as the same. You could just submit to that controller, I guess. I don't know, maybe all of this is a bad idea. Any of that work? Just been typing for a really long time there. So that all failed. Undefined method organization set up new users path. What's it called? Organization user path. We don't have a user in that controller, so here we can do. So again, here we're sort of now tying ourselves to the concept where we wouldn't have a user, but I did say earlier there would be a potential where we might want to create a new organization for an existing user. Oops. But let's go across that bridge when we come to it. You could sort of just skip that step if the user already existed. Cool. Okay, so we haven't got any kind of logic as to each one knowing the order that they're in or any ability to do that. But from here, what we can do is say, from our first one, yeah, let's just redirect to our second one for now, so we can just go. Time is it 12:18? So in here, just duplicate this for a second. Let's actually just comment that one out for a second. So again, we're just trying to get a sense of what this looks like going end to end. So test. Tell us a little bit more about test. So this could be the stuff we need to know, agreeing to terms and conditions, whatever it is there, save and continue. Tell us a little bit more about you. So here, so we're inside test is the name of our organization, remember, still getting started. And then in here, this is a simple form for user. So this could then be put email. Oh no, yeah, I think email and like password or something like that. This one could be as password. I think you can like use the devise partials and stuff like that. Like you could start to not have to duplicate things here. Cool. So email password like remember me. So if I quickly, I can't remember what does a user need? Oh, only what device tells it needs, and I can't remember what that is. Username and password. What does the schema tell us? Email, password. Well, that might be it. So can we do... Ooh, this would be cool if this works, but I'm not sure. Can we do like... just do it, treat it like a normal resource? I think I've done this before and actually had like a special class that just checked all the devise stuff was met, but I can't remember any of that off the top of my head. But maybe this is fine. So we actually have, because you're using devise doesn't mean you have to use their forms and stuff. It's super flexible. If you ever actually look through it, it's really cool. So permit email, I think it's called, and password. Maybe that. User.save. Oh, and I tell you what else we would do. So if user.save, we would do organization. This is not good code, but we'll just do it here anyway. We'll just do a create bang for now. Like you would have a bunch of error handling and a good check about any kind of validations and all that stuff. We're just gonna totally wing this for now. But it's for the stream, so we know that that's not ideal, but whatever. So we're just tying that organization to that user at this point, and then we can redirect them to the admin like dashboard. I think there's something for admin. Where's these down? Admin event path, admin event orders. Maybe there isn't. Maybe you just go to admin events path. That'll do. And what does that take? Organization slug. Maybe you can just pass it organization. This, I guess. That did not work. If user save. Expected end is just render. Okay, so let's see. Oh, actually, I can do. Does it work on this one? Oh, I haven't got that set up here. Just random stuff. Oh, we didn't have the root for it. Okay. So here we can do just that with post. And it can be as user? What was the other one that we did a post for? Down here. It's as organizations. Users. That's twice we've crashed the Rails server. That doesn't, I haven't done that a lot anymore. I wonder if that's a known Ruby 3.0 issue. I think we need to upgrade just to make sure that doesn't happen anymore. That seems scary. Okay, so let's go all the way back. Refresh this. We don't have a user. Get started. Organization name. Test 246. Great. Add some blurb, something. So email something at example.com. Ooh, okay. We got something. But no failures here. So something somewhere failed. What did we get in our logs? We posted. Oh, that we actually got further there than I thought we were going to. So that's really interesting. Just put a bang on there and see what happens. Time. Example.com. Oh, okay. Got a bang and still nothing. Am I going to the right place? Where is that going? Post organization users controllers. No, post is still going to new because I have forgotten to swap that out. I didn't write any tests, so it didn't catch it for me. Got too excited. Oh, redirect 2 is what I meant. Email has already been taken. Okay, fine. So let's go back. Yeah, the other thing it needs to do would be like sign in as, right? Can't remember the... This helper is useful for logging users in after sign up. All options given to sign in is password to set user method. Sign in user, blah, 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 sign in user. Okay, great. So we can just do sign in user. Of course, we can actually, so here, great. So, right, what have we actually just done? A huge end-to-end thing. Right, let's get rid of all these cookies and go back and just run over that because I think we're at the end of the stream. Right, very messy, very unplanned, very scrappy, but we sort of got a rough outline of what we were discussing and hopefully covered a few ideas. So we had the concept of an organization in our system, and an organization is a model for our event registration and ticketing application where all of the events are going to belong to an organization. The organization is sort of like the overall kind of domain model that you like. The admin area is per organization, and it's sort of like the primary focal point of all of the things on the event side. A user can have many organizations through organization memberships, and the idea there is that they might be able to run an event for their local sports club, but also one for their local church or something like that. I don't know. So we had built an administration area for organizations, but we were always having to create them in the console because you couldn't do it in the user interface. And that was kind of annoying, but also as part of that, we wanted to explore, rather than just having a simple form that they filled in to create a single organization, what is it to create this idea of a wizard or setup process where you go through and create a resource and then do stuff to it. We looked at very briefly at a couple of like Active.com and Eventbrite, and what they do is they place the user sign up at the start of that process. So give me your email address and password, and then you can carry on. And this is a quick idea of the idea, like using it the other way around, creating a resource, and then at the end, asking for the user details and signing you in that way. Definite pros and cons, definite trade-offs that we touched on very, very briefly. There are a couple of streams about this in the YouTube archive. If you are coming across this and you are interested in it, touched on a bunch, or ping me if you want to sort of go through it in more detail. So getting started now takes you through to this idea of organizers. You're an event organizer, but we want to know your organization name. And so you could be running an Acme sports club, and creating events for them. Put more blurb in here. This is all just very example user interface. This first step is currently in our posting to our organizations controller, creating our root resource. And as we discussed, because we are persisting these on the server side, there is a real potential here to end up with loads of orphaned data. So you might end up, this could potentially getting spammed, or you just have a bunch of people who drop out of this process. So maybe you would have a rate limit on this or something like that. You could then have a cron job that comes back and gets rid of all of the orphaned records for which a user never finished their sign up process after 90 days, 180 days, something like that. You can do what you want. Or we could say here, we could ask for the user details. We could ask for it all in one form and then create a form object that did all the right creation and checked everything out that it needed, built the organization membership. So that's really, none of that is Rails specific at all. This is all about how you want to model your application. Loads of cool, fun decisions that we were just making on the fly. But normally we would have like a nice planning process and the sketch mockups and stuff like that. Get started. That saves it. So at that point, we've persisted our organization record, and I decided to transition to using our slug for our organization as our as now the slug for our getting started process, what we called organization setup. So we switched from /organizers to talking about Acme Sports Club instead. So we're asking for a few more details here. This is just an example of this. This could be a form that acts upon. I just haven't implemented anything here because I didn't know what we might want. Again, a lack of planning, meaning that we can't really do anything. But here you could ask about anything you needed to do, terms and conditions, all that fun stuff for the organization, address, logo, like how much you want to do for setup. So I think if you, as I mentioned earlier, if you go back and watch that stream in the archive, or active.com, some of their setup processes once you sign up are really, really long. I think the most we got to was like a 13-step setup process for one of the events. The idea there is that you have placed all of the friction up front. So you then don't need to have like prompts later on all over your admin UI asking them for like complete your profile, blah, blah, blah. Like you can choose how much you want to force the even non-required information to be filled in up front versus how much you want to chase it later. And that's like a business decision, an app decision, a user experience decision, loads of fun stuff. So I've brushed over that here because I don't know what we want to ask. But what we do then need to do is tie all of this to a user, because we have, like I said, created this resource without actually asking the user for any personal information, like an email address or passwords. They currently could totally bail out. We talked about very briefly in the middle of the stream, you could store that client side so that you could kind of have an idea of them coming back. You could pre-fill those fields for them. How much engineering you would want to put into that versus just have them start again, like would depend on how much you were asking them for. Again, where are you placing that friction? When are you asking them for their email address? When does that exchange take place of personally identifiable information and account creation versus, oh, okay, I'm interested in this. I want to explore what they're going to ask me about this. And here we can now put in our user. And at this point, we are creating our user and also very roughly tying this user membership, organization membership record to it. So if we just save here, we then redirect them to the admin events path. Again, super rough, but they now have an organization, Acme Sports Club. They can start creating events for it. And again, you could decide, you might not even send them there. You could say, hey, great, now tell us about your first event and pop them in straight to the new events path, like take them straight there and have it all blend as one sort of seamless setup. But that's now, once you've passed this threshold and you have that user account, you know who they are and you can sort of email them for follow-ups for like, oh, you've got 50% of the process through and all of those fun things. A quick note, like I said at the time, this is not how you would look to do this. Ideally, you would want to kind of catch any errors around this stuff. So you could have a class that just handled creating the user and tying them to organization or something like that and handled the errors kind of a little better. Maybe they are trying to sign up again for the same organization. You could have some cool stuff that looked at whether people with the same domain name already existed for that organization. So you're like, oh, hey, I think your colleagues might already have done this. Are you part of their team or something like that? So you could do loads of fun stuff like that. But just throwing a create bang in the middle of your setup process is probably not what you want to do. But this is just a quick stream. So we're not being super diligent. All right, that is it. That's 2 hours. We covered a lot. I think it was super useful. So I'm going to wrap it up. Thank you to Gastonsky, who's in the chat. So I'm glad. I hope that your testing stuff goes well. drop back and check in next time you are around. And other than that, have a wonderful week. We will hopefully be back next Sunday, 10:30 a.m. UK time, to carry on with this, and we'll figure out what we're going to do nearer that time. Yeah, thanks a lot, and have a great week. Bye-bye.